All right. Are you ready for this one? We're diving into the world of Spanish cinema, but with a twist. We're talking Marisol, but through the lens of the Enneagram.
Oh, yeah. I'm into it. Marisol and the Enneagram. Color me intrigued.
I'm always up for a fresh perspective, and this video analysis we're diving into, well, really makes you see her whole career in a new light. They're analyzing her as a type 2, the giver.
And it's kind of uncanny how well it fits, right? When you think about it. The type 2's deep need to be loved and appreciated, and how much that drives their actions.
It makes you think about her childhood stardom. Could you imagine that kind of pressure from such a young age?
All that attention, the pressure to be perfect, it plays directly into that type 2 need for validation, for love.
Totally. And the video even goes so far as to talk about something they call childhood egocentrism. But, like, not in a bad way, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Not selfish, more like that innate need all children have to be loved and cared for, right?
Hmm.
But with Marisol, with her on-screen persona, that sweetness, that vulnerability, it resonated with audiences on this massive scale,
Yeah,
right?
and it makes you wonder how much that, in turn, amplified those needs. Because even though she was this huge star, there was this real fragility about her, this innocence that never really went away.
Right, like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. She
Yes.
embodies those qualities that people adored. She gets showered with even more love and validation, and that just reinforces those patterns, you know?
But yeah, it's quite a dynamic. It makes you wonder if her drive to perform, even as a kid, how much was genuine love for it versus this deep need to please.
Million-dollar question right there.
Yeah.
It's something that goes way beyond Marisol, though, right? It makes you think about what motivates us, you and me.
Hmm.
How much of what we do is really driven by that same desire, the desire to be loved, to be accepted?
For sure. Big questions, huh? Now, the video goes into her being a type 2 conservation subtype, which they argue fits her perfectly. For those who need a refresher, what does that even mean?
Or you know Naranja, right? One of the big names in Enneagram theory. Well, he describes the two conservation as needing to be the center of attention. But it's not that they're demanding, you know? It's more like they draw you in with this disarming, almost childlike charm.
Okay, I see it. It totally tracks with especially her earlier films. There's this sweetness, this real effortlessness that just draws you in. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, though, was it?
Yeah. No, not at all. And this is where things get really interesting. Because the video talks about this tendency of hers to push herself so hard to please others that she often ended up hurting herself.
Yeah, and that really gets you, right? I mean, this young girl, barely even old enough to understand what fame even really is, pushing herself to the limit just to please everyone around her.
It's tough to hear, for sure. And the video talks about it. Like they get into her legendary work ethic, even as a kid. And the fact that she had stomach ulcers at such a young age, like, come on.
Mm.
That speaks volumes about the toll that this need to give can take on you.
It does make you think, though, about something you said earlier, about that classic type 2 desire to please. How much of that drive to work so hard, even as a child, how much was really genuine love versus needing validation so badly?
Right. Where do you even begin to draw that line? It's a question that really makes you think, and it's not just about her. It speaks to that fine line. All of us, especially twos, have to walk between, like, healthy giving and straight-up self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that constant tension between wanting to please everyone else and honoring your own needs.
Totally. Makes you look at your own life. Where do you draw that line for yourself? When does giving become too much?
Right. It's such a crucial question. And it's not about, like, becoming self-centered. It's realizing you can't give and give if you're running on empty yourself, right?
Yeah.
But, speaking of bucking expectations, there's a whole other layer to Marisol's story that I found fascinating, and that's her political activism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about a 180 from that sweet, apolitical child star image, huh? You don't see that every day.
Definitely not. It's easy to look at it like it came out of nowhere. But what if we're looking at it all wrong? What if, and hear me out, what if her political engagement, especially like her joining the Communist Party, speaking out against Franco, what if all of that was actually another expression of that same type 2 energy, just channeled in a different direction,
Okay, now you've got me. How does that work?
So the video puts forward this idea, and it's a good one, I think, that Marisol's decision to become politically active, all of it, was actually her own form of protest.
Hold on. Are you saying the giver, the one who's always trying to please everyone, has a rebellious side too?
100%. And it throws people off, for sure. But think about it at their core. Twos crave connection, right? Love and acceptance, that's huge for them. So when they feel stifled, unappreciated, like their values are being ignored, that's when that independent streak comes out.
So it's not just about making other people happy, it's about aligning yourself with people and things that you genuinely believe in.
Bingo. And it's funny you should say that because the video actually draws this parallel between Marisol and Mozart, who Naranjo thought was a two conservation as well. Remember how Mozart rebelled against his patron, that Archbishop Colorado guy?
Yeah, because he felt like his creativity was being stifled. I see where you're going with this.
Right. You've got these two incredibly talented artists, and both of them felt the need to break free from these controlling figures in their lives. And it's not about ego or spite or anything like that. It's about staying true to yourself and what you believe in, protecting your sense of autonomy, your values.
Okay, so we've got this interesting paradox here. This deep-seated desire to please others, but also this fierce need to be your own person. It's a lot to hold at once.
It really is. And it kind of makes you think about the last chapter of Marisol's story, that retreat from public life. That one's a real head scratcher for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like you don't really see that coming. This woman who held audiences captive for what felt like forever. Then she has this whole second act, the political activism, and then boom, she walks away from it all.
Wild, right?
Uh-huh.
It really makes you think what makes someone make that kind of choice.
Mm.
Right. It's part of her story everyone wants to figure out. And I think a lot of people, they just assume that someone like her, with that built-in need to please, would just need that spotlight forever. But I think Naranjo's work with twos, especially that conservation subtype,
Mm.
I think he was onto something when he talked about them.
Okay, now you have to elaborate. What did he say about them?
Well, he talked about how even though they're constantly seeking out validation, needing all that attention, two conservations also have this surprising capacity for, well, withdrawal, I guess you could call it. Like
Yeah.
they're almost like fours in that way,
Hmm.
needing to retreat, wanting that solitude so they can like reconnect with themselves and all that.
Wow. It's almost like that inner conflict we were talking about before, that push and pull between wanting to give so much to the world, but then also needing to pull back and just, I don't know, refill your own cup.
Exactly. And when you think about everything she went through, right,
Yeah.
from being a child star to navigating that whole political landscape, you can't help but wonder, was this her way of taking back control? Reclaiming her sense of self after giving so much of herself to the world.
I love how you put that reclaiming her sense of self, because it's not about disappearing, right? It's about making the choice to engage with the world, but on your own terms.
100%. And who knows, maybe that's where she found that true connection she was looking for.
Mm.
Not from millions of fans, but from something deeper, something within herself.
It's a good reminder that we all find fulfillment in different ways, huh? And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away from what everyone expects of you and just, I don't know, forge your own path.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Especially these days when it's so easy to think that being successful means being in the spotlight constantly.
Truth. So as we wrap up our deep dive on Marisol, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from all of this?
Honestly, I think it comes down to remembering that we're all more complex than we seem, right? Even someone like Marisol, who from the outside seemed to have it all figured out, was dealing with her own stuff.
Mm.
We all are. We all have this own inner world, our own reasons for doing the things we do. And I don't know, I think there's something kind of beautiful about that.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And for any twos listening out there who maybe see a little bit of themselves in Marisol's story.
Don't be afraid to put yourself first sometimes,
Hmm.
set those boundaries and figure out what giving really means for you. Because sometimes the best thing you can give yourself is the freedom to be who you are, even if it means going against the grain.
Love it. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. Until next time, folks.